Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today by Dana Samuelson. Dana is president of the American Gold Exchange. In this episode, we'll be discussing Dana's thoughts on how we change the way we think about money and why we need to think about maintaining rigorous standards of excellence. Dana, welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tony. I'm honored to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear more about you and your story. So, let's get started. What is your origin story?
Well, I'm 43-year precious metals market veteran. I got out of college in 1980 with a German degree, and I was hireable then, like most college graduates were hireable in 2009. We weren't, because the economy was in shambles, interest rates were sky high, but I was able to get a job working in a vault that handled a lot of precious metals because I could be trusted. I spent 2 or 3 years counting, shipping, and weighing when I caught my lucky break and was offered a job at another company by the man who was responsible for the private re-legalization of gold ownership in the United States in 1974. His name was Jim Blanchard, and I went to work for Jim in 1983. He's the kind of the godfather of the precious metals business. And I climbed the corporate ladder with Jim, culminating in being his senior buyer in the late 80s. And I got to do business with U.S. Mint distributors, Canadian Mint distributors, and basically got to know the whole industry. And after about 18 years of the industry, I started my own company in 1998, American Gold Exchange. We're basically a national physical precious metals mail order business. And we also do a fairly large volume of vintage U.S. gold and silver coins minted prior to 1933 and World War II. I'm basically a high-end coin nerd. In addition to being a metals.
There you go. Well, that's interesting, and I think that's one of the things that's as I've talked to so many guests on this podcast, is nobody comes out of college going, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do in the financial services industry." But there's so many niches to the industry that it's exciting to hear what different people are up to in their stories. So, one of the things you talk about on your website, and we were talking a little bit about pre-show, is rigorous standards of excellence. So why are rigorous standards of excellence important in the world of money?
Well, basically, your reputation is all you truly have. And if you do not maintain high standards of excellence, you won't have a good reputation. In my business, we do large dollar volumes of business on handshakes, and we're only as good as our word is good. And as soon as it's not good, then people won't do business with me on a dealer-to-dealer basis, or clients won't do business with me. So it's very important that I say what I do, and then I do what I say. My word is my bond. And on top of that, the quality of our products has to be top-notch. So we keep our clients satisfied in that regard. So we're very strict about our business standards for how we conduct business and the quality of our products too. We get a lot of repeat and referral business as a result, which is a testimony to our maintaining high standards. I'm in an unregulated business. Anyone can be a coin dealer if they want to be, or a precious metals dealer. And we do get opportunists that come into the marketplace. And I actually helped the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, put alleged bad actor out of business 2.5 years ago because they were defrauding the public. And I wanted to help stop the problem. The case is still pending, but that's a way of me to give back as well.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. And I know that's something, in the personal finance space where I spend more of my time is there's a lot of people who are giving advice or peddling products who aren't really qualified. I mean, how did that work for you? If you can go a little bit deeper on that.
Well, we try and help clients in our sector, which is physical precious metals and vintage coins, make the right decisions for them, intelligent decisions based on market experience and current market conditions. So in trying to anticipate what markets will do when you want to give clients advice, it's important that you give them the most honest, straightforward expertise that you can share. Because if you do the right thing, there's never anything wrong when you do the right thing by your clients. Now, you may be wrong about the information that you provide because the market doesn't do what you think it might do, but it doesn't mean you gave it an honest try. And if you make a mistake, people will be forgiving as long as they know that you're sincere about what you're trying to accomplish and you're truly trying to help them. So that's basically the way we look at things. And I always try and help people as much as I can because it comes back to me in many, many ways. And that's what a lot of people don't understand when you're going for a quick gain. If you take advantage of somebody, you're going to have to find new customers. And I like to have the clients that I have keep coming back to do business with me. It's really simple.
Yeah, well, no, and that's interesting. And, surprise, the market's not doing what you expect them to do. I mean, I don't know if I've heard that one before.
Well, it happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's important for all of us, because when we're working with product or if we're in our consumer shoes, is things happen. Things don't evolve as we expect them to, and there's always a wild card. So that's great. Great advice. So, I wanted to talk a little bit. You've also done some work to fight fraud and counterfeiting. Can you just tell us, maybe just a little bit about that? Maybe a moment from that you learned something?
Yeah. So we're in the physical precious metals business. We have a modest but growing problem with the Chinese counterfeits coming into the marketplace through online sales platforms, and it's spurious product. When this problem came up about 6-7 years ago, I was president of the Professional Numismatist Guild, which is the leading organization of rare coin dealers in the country. And it was really sad that it was kind of incumbent upon us to try and defend our product from being diluted or being tainted by spurious merchandise coming in from China. So I conceived of and helped to establish the industry anti-counterfeiting task force that today works with Homeland Security and Secret Service to interdict shipments of spurious merchandise coming into the U.S. from China. And we've confiscated, $100 million worth of product out of billions of product that's been sold through this task force. And it's another way to give back to the industry.
That's really fascinating. We could probably spend the whole episode talking about this, but I think it's important, is the giving back aspect. I think for advisors to understand is that, as you gain expertise and skills, and this goes for people who aren't advisors who are listening to this as well, is to give generously of your skills and your expertise and share them, and you can make a positive difference. And I'm sure that's probably come back to you in different ways as you've talked about to help build your brand and your business.
Right. So I'm in the business 43 years. I've had my own company for 25 years. It's only in the last 15 or so that I've really been in a position to have enough experience, expertise, contacts, and wherewithal to actually try to give back but I've been able to give back in meaningful ways. So it's just a process of building your career and your reputation, which goes back to standards of excellence again. And basically, we treat people like we would like to be treated. And we do have a lot of aggressive vendors in our business who don't treat people well. And if you're nice and give people honest, straightforward advice, good pricing, good products, it's easy to stand out among others who are a little lower in their standards. So, and giving back is important. And you'd be surprised how you may not realize when you try and help someone, how that can come back to you in different ways down the road. People remember, and it could be a year or two or three, and out of nowhere, someone could be referred to you that you never thought you might get a referral on, simply because someone talked to someone and they liked you, and then your area of expertise came up and they recommended you. It never hurts to be good to people and honest and straightforward with them.
With you 100%, with you 100% on that. That's great advice. So, let's get into the get ready questions is, what is a basic money concept that you wish people knew?
Well, gold and silver have been money and currency since the beginning of man's existence on the planet in commerce. And this was a monetary system that existed until 1933, as far as gold being both money and currency. Now, currency is something we use as a medium of exchange. Money has value. A barrel of oil could be considered money, but it's not good currency, because if you want to make change, what are you going to do? Pour off a quart for somebody? That's not how it works, right? You can't pour off a quart of oil easily. But we've taken the money out of the currency, and what our currency is today is fiat currency. It has no intrinsic value. It's paper, it's copper, nickel. Money for most of man's existence has been gold and silver coins. Gold and silver tend to hold their purchasing power over time. And we measure gold and silver in the United States today in dollars. And the price has gone up a lot in the last 20 years for gold in particular, because of the explosion of our debt. Our debt in 1996 was $5 trillion. It took us 200 years to get to $5 trillion in debt. Today, 28 years later, our debt is 32 trillion, more than 6 times higher. And the gold price is multiplied about 6 times over that same period of time. So gold is tracking the increase of our debt. But it's not so much the gold price is becoming more valuable, it's that the dollars that we hold in our pocket buy less and less. And when you're in an inflationary period like we're in now, you feel that. But we had about a 6-8 year period where inflation was under 2%. Most people don't feel that, on an annual basis. But now we're in a period where, hey, inflation has taken a bite out of our ability to buy the same things with the same amount of dollars we had a couple of years ago. Here's an example. I know your listeners can't see this, but I'm holding in my hand a 1964 silver quarter. This is the last year the U.S. Mint made silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars out of silver. They changed to copper nickel after that, which is base metals. This 1964 quarter would buy you a gallon of gas in 1964. Today, the same quarter, the silver quarter, will buy you about a gallon and a half. So silver and gold have held their purchasing power over time, which is the concept that I would like to pass on to your listeners. And it's not that gold and silver are going up so much in price, it's that the dollar continues to lose purchasing powers. And our politicians who manage our money are not good stewards of our money. If you look at our debt, if you look at the entitlement programs we have that we don't have enough taxes to pay for, we've just printed money to compensate for the money that the markets have cost us in the last financial crisis and now COVID. And it's not a good legacy that we're leaving for our kids or our grandkids, one of extreme debt. This is not how the U.S. government acted for most of its over 200-year history.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different avenue we could go down.
That's a lot to chew on.
Yeah. So, but I think the important thing is the value, and I think people don't realize that sometimes is that gold and silver are not just an investment, but that they're also a thing that holds value, unlike a stock certificate.
So I would encourage people to think about having a savings account outside of the dollar that is held in physical gold and silver. That's a good way to have your nest egg hold its purchasing power over time.
Interesting. Might have to follow up with you on that to talk a little bit more about that. So, just to switch back is, what is one simple thing that you can do each year to set yourself up for financial success?
You have to keep learning. You can never stop learning. That's the beauty of the human mind. You can continue to build on what your knowledge base is. But if you become complacent, you'll fall behind. Now, one of my friends is Robert Kiyosaki, who has written Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's one of the best-selling financial books of all time. In fact, it's the #2 selling book behind the Bible. And I've been to conferences with Robert. I've been to social events with Robert. He never stops learning. He's in his mid-70s, but he's a curious mind. So always continue your education. No matter where you think your level is, it's never high enough. You can always learn more. So try and stay curious, try and stay open, and that will serve you better over time than anything else.
Yeah, I attest to that. Is my background is as a life insurance specialist, and I've been involved with it for a long time since I've been in the industry, and I'm constantly, going, oh, well, that's something I didn't think about or I didn't know, and I feel like, I know the industry very well, and I've written a book on life insurance, but there's always something new to learn. That's a powerful point.
Right. I got to a point after the great financial crisis where we had a windfall in our business, and I got complacent for a couple of years. And then it kind of bit me on the butt. And I realized, oh, you just can't stop. You've got to, even though you've got some success, you've got to keep going forward all the time. And that's what I live by now.
100%. Well, related to that is, what is one habit that people can change when it comes to their money?
Oh, you have to learn how to make up your own mind, assimilate as much information as you can. There's 3 sides to every coin. There's the front, there's the back, and then there's the edge. So I don't like to advocate that people just follow the advice of one particular mentor or source of knowledge. You want to seek out both sides of every argument and then stand on the edge and look at both sides and make up your own mind. Trust yourself. And I think that will serve people well also.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's what I hope that, when I provide educational tools and resources, and by having guests like you on this podcast, is that people can hear different viewpoints and start to make up their own minds and find their own way through the financial world.
Right. Be your own devil's advocate, basically.
I like that. Do both sides, like
right.
in the cartoons.
Right. You have to have an open mind. When I've closed my mind down to one particular opinion or mindset, it always doesn't necessarily hurt me, but it hinders me.
Yeah, 100%. So Dana, what money myth are you trying to break?
What money myth am I trying to break? I'm sorry to say that I really don't have a lot of confidence in the US dollar anymore. It's losing its purchasing power. We have been the world's reserve currency since the 1940s, and we're losing that status right now. So most people in the United States were insulated from some of the turbulence that happens in the world because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. It helps to mitigate some of the market shocks you'll see in other economies due to commodity prices changing and currency values fluctuating. There's a big movement on right now from Eastern nations because of the Ukraine war and our weaponizing of the dollar by sanctioning Russia and denying Russia access to the SWIFT banking system. There's a big movement on to shun the dollar, which is the world's reserve currency, and countries around the world are looking to do business with each other outside of dollar transactions. And this is something that is going to potentially create more inflation in the US as countries around the world that have been using dollars since the 60s and 70s return them to the US and start to do things in their own currencies more directly, specifically China and Brazil, Russia and India, South Africa. Saudi Arabia announced this year that they would take payment for oil in other currencies in lieu of the dollar, which has been the standard since 1974. And the petrodollar has made the dollar go around the world for decades now. And some of those dollars are going to come home. If we get some of those dollars back in the US more than we need, that potentially is a further inflation here. And it's a bit complicated, but that's the situation. So the myth that the US dollar is the mighty currency that'll last for another 30 or 40 years may fail, and sooner than some people realize.
Well, that's interesting. And, I mean, is I think for most of our audience, as you point out, this is complex. It's complex even for those of us in the financial world, because there's so many layers to unlock to fully understand. And parts of it, most people are never going to understand because you don't have access to the information. Do you have a good resource that you'd recommend to people if they want to learn more about this?
Well, all you have to do is Google de-dollarization, and you'll find a whole host of stories on the internet of how countries around the world, primarily the BRICS nation, Brazil, India, Russia, China, South Africa, are looking to increase the size of the BRICS nations. Saudi Arabia is going to become a BRICS approved nation, and another 10 or 15 countries may join in this year. And the whole point is to have a payment system that is outside of the dollar, so that if one of these countries does something that we deem politically incorrect and we become upset with them, we don't sanction them or deny them access to the dollar system as well. So they're looking to have a plan B for their own finances. And it makes sense. The US dollar was about 75% of the world's trading transactions in 2000. Today, it's about 58%. So the number of transactions in dollars has been declining, and this is going to accelerate a bit over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And it could accelerate faster than that.
Well, I think the bottom line here is that every action has a reaction. And that's what we're seeing as the consequences of some of the choices that have been made, which gets back to what you were talking about earlier, is these things do have long tail repercussions. Some of the decisions that are made, some of the ways we think about our money. So Dana, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time knowing what you know now about money?
I would try and become a better saver and understand the power of compounding wealth over time, which is something I didn't understand until later in life. In particular, I like real estate as a way to do this. I also like precious metals as a way to save outside of paper currency, the dollar. So I would really encourage anyone that's young today to learn the power of compounding your wealth. And it takes discipline to do this. I had a lot of fun in my first 20, 30 years. And if I had had a little less fun and a little bit more discipline, I'd be a little bit farther down the path to generating wealth today than I am. There's nothing wrong with where I'm at, but there's a good balance and it goes along with keep learning all the time, right? But the compound wealth effect is powerful. And if you started as a young man or a young woman, you will reward yourself dramatically.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. And I hear it from probably half of my guests touch on the power of compounding. So if you're watching or listening, you've heard this before. Think about learning more about the power of compound interest. So Dana, to wrap up what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
Well, there's all kinds of money. We think of money as what's in our pocket. That's actually just currency. So in an environment where we have inflation and the number of people on the planet just keeps becoming bigger and bigger compared to the natural resources, this is probably a decade where tangible investments are going to outperform traditional paper assets. And as I said, money is something that has value: land, commodities, oil, lumber, food, precious metals. These are the things that really are real money. Now, some are transactable easily and some are not, but that's what I would try and get your audience to understand, that it's not just the paper dollars that we have in our pocket. That's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. And the credit of the United States has been downgraded this year by one of the leading,
I was gonna say.
right? Because our debt's too high. Our debt's too high. It's going to go higher. So think outside of the box in what you're taught as far as what money really is.
Yeah, and I think that's an important lesson, is even when we think about investing, I talk to my son about value investing, is, companies that actually do something and provide a real value. And I think that's along the same line as, what has real value? And, it does come back to what you do, gold and silver. Those have real value. And I think that's important for people to understand is, that was a questionable thing about Bitcoin. Is there any real value there? Maybe, but only as long as other people thought it had value. So.
Well, Bitcoin's been a real wild ride over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and probably will continue to be so. So, Dana, thanks for coming on today. Is, where can people learn more about you and what you're up to in the American Gold Exchange?
Well, our company is American Gold Exchange. Our website is www.amergold.com. We're located in Austin, Texas. We have a presence on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Those are social media places people can find us. And we have a website that has transparent online pricing for the most basic products that you're going to want to purchase in the precious metals arena. We only really handle products that are easily sellable in the future. So we could have 3,000 items on our website. We have about 200 because it's really the bread and butter products. So if people want to physically invest in precious metals, we handle on our website, those items that are the most popular for competitive pricing and ease of sale in the future. And, we've had an impeccable reputation. If we can help anybody in the physical precious metals or vintage U.S. coin arena, we'd love to have that opportunity.
Well, fantastic. Well, Dana, thanks for coming on and sharing with us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tony. It's been my pleasure. Always enjoy speaking with people that are trying to help educate people out there, and you're doing a fantastic job with that. So
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you adding to that body of knowledge. And for everybody out there watching or listening, thank you for tuning in to the Get Ready Money podcast. Until next time.